Glitch City is a place that shouldn't exist. It's a glorified tax haven where megacorporations and syndicates run the government. The population is infected with nanomachines made to surveil you at all times, and the White Knights enforce the city's corrupt laws, creating an oppressive police state. Brutality and violent crime are commonplace in Glitch City, and the quality of life for its non-elite inhabitants have been spiraling for decades. It is, in all senses of the word, a dystopia. But who cares about that, bro? We got cat girls and booze, baby, let's go! Valhalla cyberpunk bartending action, also known as waifu bartending, or just Valhalla, is legitimately one of my favorite games of all time. It's a visual novel released in 2016, set in the aforementioned dystopian corpo hellscape, Glitch City. You play through a couple weeks in the life of Jill Stingray, a chain-smoking, perpetually broke bartender with a terminal case of gifted kid burnout. She's the best, by the way. We'll get back to her later, but she's the GOAT, like deadass. We follow her as she works in the dingy but cozy chain bar labeled VA-11 Hall A. But that's a mouthful, so everybody just calls it Valhalla. Also, it's like technically a Christmas game, because that shit takes place from mid-December to New Year's. I don't know, I thought that was neat. And that's pretty much the concept of the game. It's a visual novel where you mix drinks and chat shit with the various patrons of the bar. And to be honest though, I do kind of hate visual novels as a whole, and not from lack of experience with them either. Trust me dude, I was an anime fan in the early to mid 2010s, so my tweenage years were filled with weird weeb shit, like Sakura's Spirit, Neko Para, Danganronpa, bruh. All of that shit was like cringe-ass doo-doo feces, and it pretty much ruined the genre for me. But Valhalla? That shit was different. Like, it still knows exactly what it is. I said at the beginning it was AKA waifu bartending for a reason. But it still puts in the work to be bomb as shit and not insult my intelligence or show me weird hentai shit. In a genre where pretty much everything is pandering and over the top, Valhalla's some real shit, brother. Everything from the gameplay to the killer aesthetics to like the heartfelt character stories and fascinating plot. It all separates itself from the typical cheeks-ass VN. So let's talk about why. How's it going, you flows and hoes? I'm Deejus, and let's get into the future Elon Musk wants. What makes Valhalla special? But before I get into it, literally none of you are subscribed. Wow! Fix that. I tie my self-worth to the funny YouTube number. Okay, let's go for real. I think the thing that really blew me away about Valhalla is that it's an actual game. Like, in my experience with visual novels, no matter how good the story is, all there is for gameplay is choosing between a couple dialogue choices that don't actually change anything. But that's where Valhalla sets itself apart. See, Valhalla is still, by all accounts, a visual novel, but the actual gameplay is a shockingly complex, resource-based strategy game, all based around the bar. Valhalla's primary gameplay loop is based off of serving your customers drinks. You have to mix together the game's 4 big flavors and karmatrine, the drink's alcoholic factor, in the right proportions to make a drink that matches their orders. And while, of course, sometimes your clients will ask for like a specific drink, a lot of the time you'll have a lot of freedom in what kind of drinks you make, and you'll have a ton of room to experiment. These drinks essentially act as the dialogue choices you'd get in a normal visual novel, but instead of having 3 dialogue choices that barely affect the story, you get a ton of different choices based on what drink you serve and its different attributes, and each of them actually affects the story. Like, take Kiramiki, for example. She's an idol, think like Hatsune Miku but actually hot, who shows up really early into the game. And if you serve her normally, you get to have a bomb-ass conversation with her about her past and her passion for art, and it's honestly really endearing. However, if you make her drinks with maximum karmatrine, like I did, she switches into Angie mode and goes on a supervillain rant saying, "The world is rotten. The black sludge in the sewer will consume us all. I am the only thing that brings joy in this pathetic world. Fanboys, to me, march." And you just sit there like, damn, okay, I just wanted an autograph. The wild thing about this is that it comes back later. A few days later, a regular client who's a fan of Kiramiki will talk about the performance she put on after leaving the bar and how she liked the darker tone of the song. Holy shit, this game is the best. Sometimes clients will be vague with their orders to test you or just lie about what they really want to drink, turning the game into a puzzle game where you have to piece together what drink they really want in order to get extra drinks and endings. And all that's just scratching the surface, too. I haven't even talked about how you have to watch your money, too. The game is set in a capitalist dystopia, so it does make sense that the final boss is your rent bill. Jill has to buy stuff every day so she doesn't get distracted at work. Plus, she has bills due at the end of each week, with consequences if you don't pay them. Meaning you have to watch how much the drinks cost as well as what's in them, which adds actually a really cool strategy aspect to just serving the drinks. Man, I remember specifically, one time I had to lose out on unlocking a secret character because if I didn't serve somebody an expensive drink, I would get evicted from my house. This game's a little too realistic sometimes, man. Bro, they got wrestling fans in this game? Fuck. Ah, never mind, this game is trash. The thing I like so much about Valhalla's world is how lived in and grounded it all feels. Like, a lot of the time, especially with Cyberpunk stories, they never actually explain any of the terms or concepts to you. So the story's on that Kingdom Hearts pack like the whole time. But Valhalla doesn't do that. The game drip feeds you all of its high concept sci-fi bullshit in a way that actually gets everything it wants to across, without sounding like, Sir, the Balls Matrix has awakened the Near Replicants. They're playing League of Legends with the Bonkos to fight the Asswipe Corporation. What do we do? Hehehe. Don't worry, this is all part of the Human Instrumentality Project. Why did I write this in my script? This bit is the worst. Lilim are androids that only recently achieved sentience, so Glitch City is being used as a test site to see if they can be citizens. Catgirls exist in this game, but due to the only ways to become one being either have cancer or be rich, they got stuck with the name Cat Boomers. You don't find these things out through some codec call or an obscure blog post made by one of the devs. You find all this out because some of your coolest regulars are a Lilim and a Cat Boomer, and you learn more about them as you interact with them throughout the game. Valhalla is really good at naturally weaving its world building into compelling characters like that, and I think what really lets that happen is the game's small scale. Even though the only two places you ever actually see in the game are the bar and Jill's apartment, you see it all through Jill's eyes, and that makes Glitch City feel bigger, deeper, and more lived in than any open world game. You learn things like the city's cartoon industry in equal measures to the typical Cyberpunk stuff, like mega corporate scandals and terrorist hackers, because Jill is a dork, and that's what she's interested in. Her personal opinions on everything happening around her flesh out the game's world even more. Also, it's canon that Jill Valhalla fucking hates YIIKS, and honestly, that's iconic of her. It's also a good segue into... One of the most controversial things about Valhalla is that holy shit, this game be yeekin'. For context, Valhalla was the first project of both developer Sukeban Games and publisher YIIKS Games. And while Sukeban Games have been taking their time when it comes to releasing any new projects, YIIKS Games was publishing for several indie games at once, including one they had a lot of faith in, YIIK, a postmodern RPG. And so, what I assumed happened here was that YIIKS Games gave Sukeban some state-mandated references to their big passion project that they had to put in their game if they wanted it to be published. And by some state-mandated YIIK references, I mean a lot of state-mandated YIIK references. In the canon of Valhalla, YIIK is the most popular game of all time, gets remakes multiple times a year, but is still somehow a cult classic. It's not a cult classic if it's popular and remade every year, YIIKS, you stupid hoes, but go off, I guess. It gets news articles, collectibles, a TV show. YIIK cosplayers show up into the bar and you have to serve them drinks, and it's actually plot relevant. Honestly though, all these YIIK references don't really bother me, because even if they're obvious ads and genuinely take away from the rest of the game, now that both of the games are out, it's so funny, and I feel so bad for Sukeban Games, and it's so funny. To be honest though, this isn't a problem that I can only attribute to YIIKS though, because Valhalla still has a lot of YIIK references in it that hit more as cringe than funny to me. A couple of them are cool, like I popped at some of Dana's wrestling references, and the dog dressed as Big Boss was sick as hell. But like, there are a couple drinks that are just Simpsons references, including the secret one, which is fine. The internet segments are so accurate to mid-2010s forum culture that it physically caused me pain, which is fine. And then there are characters like Art and Mario, which are less fine. Now, normally I don't really hate characters where their whole thing is just a visual gag or a reference, but I really don't think they fit in a game like Valhalla. Mario is the less annoying of the two to me. He's an Akira reference, and literally every Cyberpunk story needs one of those, but at least he only shows up a couple times and is treated like a bit. But you can't put Art Vandelay from Vandelay Industries into your video game, have him look like Costanza, act like Costanza, and then literally have him mention Festivus, and then look me in the eyes and say, nah, but he's a deep character though. He's George Costanza.
Don't urinate on my leg and tell me it's raining.
Art, to me, is the only thing in Valhalla that 100% doesn't work. His plotline isn't even bad, but you can't have him be a semi-regular with a serious plot and then have him have more screen time than plot-relevant characters like Gabby, Kira Mickey, and Virgilio, while also literally having him look like this. It's just mad goofy, and it takes me out of the game whenever he's on screen. That's really the only negative thing I have to say about the game though, and Art is the only character I really have an issue with. Every other character in the game, primo. The fantastic thing about the cast of Valhalla is that I genuinely like every single character. Art doesn't count because he's from the cast of Seinfeld. Some of my personal favorites are Alma Armas, a freelance white hat hacker and best girl don't at me, Dana, a former pro wrestling legend who opened Valhalla as her retirement, Donovan D. Dawson, the J. Jonah Jameson style sleazy editor of Glitch City's biggest newspaper, and Jill herself, but we'll get back to her in a second. But honestly, you could name any character in the game as your favorite, and I'd probably say, yeah, that's fair, I get it. I think why that is comes down to Valhalla's top-notch writing. Normally, in video games, especially visual novels, characters just show up grapeshot with their own specific gimmicks, hoping the player's monkey brain will attach itself to at least one of them. And don't get me wrong, Valhalla does this too, and it's not really a bad thing. But Valhalla uses this design philosophy as a springboard, while most people just rely on it. Every character is their own person with their own likes, fears, vibes, and even favorite drinks. Sure, they've all got their own wacky cyberpunk edge, but emotionally they all stay really grounded in reality, and that makes it easy to relate to them. So, when these people all bounce off each other shooting the shit about their shitty families, workplace troubles, and love lives over drinks, it's incredibly endearing. The top-tier character writing in Valhalla also really helps reinforce one of its major themes, that being Sonder. The theory that any Joe Schmo you pass on the street or sit next to at the bar is living a life just as complex and interesting as yours. That they could be the protagonist of their own stories. It's a theme I don't see talked about much, and I see even less in media. But it's a theme that I hardcore vibe with, and I think it's excellently portrayed in this game. If Valhalla was a different game, then anyone from Say, Gillian, and Jamie could have been excellent protagonists in their own right, since their plots are a lot more action-packed and tie in closer to the overarching plot and mystery surrounding Glitch City. But this game isn't called Glitch City, it's called Valhalla, and having Jill as the protagonist is what makes this game really special. Everyone else's stories are incredible, but they aren't resolved in the bar. Jill's are. This also means I finally get to talk about Jill. Let's go. Jill, or Julianne Natalie Stingray if you want her to beat the shit out of you, is 100% the best video game protagonist ever. And that's not me just spouting bullshit for the video. Valhalla fans agree with me. Jill demolished the competition in Sukeban Games' 2019 popularity poll, getting nearly double the votes of the second place finisher Dorothy. And that's a big deal for a video game protagonist. That never happens. The only exception I can think of off the dome is 2B from Nier Automata, and that one's got two obvious reasons why. Jill doesn't need all that cake to give her a boost though. Matter of fact, she's the highlight of the game just as a dialogue box. And all I'm saying is, you know she's based if she forces gamers to like a woman for their personality. Jill makes such a perfect protagonist for Valhalla because she brilliantly mixes the themes of the game together with a type of relatability you don't really see often in main characters. See, normally, video game protagonists have the personality of a stale slice of Kraft American cheese stapled to the body of a mid-30s white man. with just enough basic ass, bum ass, everyman qualities that literally anyone can project themselves onto him. I fucking hate that trope. It's a charisma vacuum. Every time I play like Fallout 4 and I hear my character talk about his son, I want to hit him in the head with a rock until he stops moving. Jill though, she avoids that pitfall incredibly. She's still mad easy to project onto, but it's because she's got so much personality, not that she has none. Jill's the only character that smokes. She's an introvert who loves people watching, she's a disaster bisexual, she has a crush on her boss, she's a closeted anime fan, she laughs at cock jokes, and she's snarky with a low tolerance for BS. Any of these character traits you can look at and be like, damn, she's just like me for real. But they all come together with who Jill is outside of that to form a detailed, fully formed character that you want to see succeed. And so, after you spend most of the game as Jill, hearing everybody else's stories, when it's Jill's turn to have her past come into focus, you're fully invested and desperately want to see her grow and succeed. Her tragic past is actually really normal, and it's all the more devastating for it. And you hurt for Jill as you watch her struggle to try to make her way out of it. So when the friends and regulars you earn along the way help Jill get out of her slump, it feels really nice, and it reminds you that you aren't alone outside of the game too. It's the only game I've ever played that did that without being snooty about it. It's the perfect conflict for Valhalla's down-to-earth view of the insanity that is Glitch City. All of this makes Jill feel like less of a stock character performing a gameplay function, but like an actual person that you see in this world filled with other people. Jill's the linchpin that ties all of Valhalla together, and that makes her a great character and the perfect protagonist. In conclusion, Valhalla fucking rules, dude. It's a beautiful, down-to-earth story in a medium where games that try to do similar shit are either pandering or pretentious. It's unabashedly a game about being an adult, and it covers mature subjects with grace and humor in a way that video games, let alone games in its genre, fail to. No cap, I played this game for the first time as a dickhead teenager, and I adored it for its cool dialogue and cute girls, but now that I've started living on my own and figuring out what it's like being an adult for myself, it hits so much harder for me. The world's going to shit right now, so when we end up living in a corporate hellscape dystopia, it may as well be Glitch City, right? Take me to Valhalla, Elon. Take me to Valhalla. How's it going, you flows and hoes? I'm Deejus. Thank you guys so much for watching to the end of the video. I really don't get to make shit like this all that often because I've got so much work with university and I've got like 10 subscribers, but I really appreciate anybody who's watching to the end of the video. I'd love any support you can give me. Maybe I could do this more often if I get it, but until then, I'm just gonna keep making these when I have time. They're a blast, and I really hope you liked it. I really do. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one.